Hey, how you doing? I'm Oliver Joyce, creator of Swords and Sandals, and of course the owner at Whiskeybarrel Studios. Whiskeybarrel Studios is in fact what I wanted to talk to you today about because I've been doing this now since 2013 is when I started. Whiskeybarrel Studios was officially founded in December of 2013, and it's now August 2018, so I've been doing this for just about 5 years nearly, coming up on 5 years this Christmas. It's been a great ride. This isn't one of those videos where I'm shutting down or anything like that. I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about my plans for the next couple of years and explain to you a little bit about how I kind of do what I do. So when I first started Whiskeybarrel Studios, I was actually working for another company, and I was doing this at nights and on weekends. And the first game I ever made under the label Whiskeybarrel Studios was, of course, You Are a Knight, which was the Swords and Sandals style fighting game. And I've covered this in other videos and other blog posts and things, but things didn't work out so well for that game, and my time at that company, it all went bad. And in fact, that was the best thing that ever happened to me for many reasons. I'd been long overdue getting out of that place, and this was just the catalyst for it. And for a while, it seemed like a terrible thing. Being forced into like doing things for myself after being at the old place for about almost 10 years. And it's always scary. And so the first couple of years at Whiskeybarrel Studios, I did a lot of freelance work and contract jobs and so on just to make ends meet while I tried to build some games. But I didn't really have a real vision because I'd lost Swords and Sandals and I didn't have the rights to use the Swords and Sandals brand. But when the brand was bought by my good friends at eGames, it was a whole new lease of life for things, and it really changed everything. And so I teamed up with them, and now, of course, am officially developing all the Swords and Sandals games again and bringing them into the 21st century, basically. There's been a lot of them. I'm not going to count them all here, but I recently as 2 or 3 days ago, released yet another one in this series called Swords and Sandals Mini Fighters. Now, that game was originally made in 2012 when I was at the old company, and when we brought out the Redux series about a year ago, Whiskeybarrel and eGames, we took that one down just so it wasn't competing and people didn't get confused because they are quite similar. But I thought it would be worth bringing back, and I did a video about that yesterday. So with that done, I've been working since probably 2015, maybe, on Swords and Sandals Pirates, but originally that was called Ships and Scurvy. Now, before I had the name to Swords and Sandals, I was just making a pirate game, but because the way I draw characters is very similar to the Swords and Sandals art style, it ended up being a natural fit that this game should be part of the Swords and Sandals universe. So I'm sort of jumping backwards and forwards here in the Whiskeybarrel story because, a few years freelancing, working on the Ships and Scurvy game and a number of other prototypes, which I should show you at some point. I released about 4 or 5 little games into the app stores that didn't set the world on fire. There was a game called Monkey Mountain, Captain Fishblock, which was Amazon's app of the day, and had 60,000 free downloads in a day, but I didn't make a single cent out of it. And a number of other little ones that were inconsequential. But I started building Ships and Scurvy as kind of a big last hurrah of trying to make a big strategy game that would really capture the audience of Swords and Sandals and fans of pirate games and that kind of thing. But this game ended up taking a lot longer than I thought. So I was working on it and I realized I needed a full-time job because my girlfriend at the time and I wanted to buy a house, and freelancing was paying some of the bills, but not all of them. So I ended up working for an educational company where I still am now. I work with a bunch of good friends of mine, actually. Tom Gattenhoff, John Stayscale, Tony Lowe, Steve Fellows, all guys that I used to work with at the old company, in fact. Jared Blanthorne's another one who did the art for Swords and Sandals V. Tony did the art for the other Swords and Sandals games. John is an excellent game developer. Remember that name, John Stayscale, because I'm going to be talking to you about him later in the video. And I've been there now since, I think, August of 2015. So it's coming up on 3 years. So it's probably a timely video. When I started there, I had to stop making Ships and Scurvy because the full-time job kept me very busy. But that kind of coincided with the e-game Sword and Sandals deal, which was phenomenal. I signed like a contract to basically bring a bunch of the old games back and potentially bring new ones in. Now, the old games have pretty much been Redux, Swords and Sandals 2, Swords and Sandals 5, Medieval, which was formerly known as Euro Knight, and Mini Fighters are the 4 games that I've built. And the next one coming out is, of course, Swords and Sandals Pirates, which formerly known as Ships and Scurvy, and I'm working hard on that at the moment. As you can probably see in this little screen here in the corner, that is one of the characters from the game. There. I haven't got my monitor set up to display both, but I'm going to be doing more videos about that soon. Anyway, I've been working on that sort of on and off for quite some time, but I took another long break from that when I did the whole Redux series. I took basically 2 years off, and earlier this year I got back into Swords and Sandals Pirates. I'm hoping to get that game out in about November. Now, a few things have happened since I started development on this again. I can't remember exactly when was he born. My son Isaac was born in January, so obviously 9 months before that we found out that we were pregnant, and because of that we decided that it would be a great time for me to go down to a couple of days a week, 3 days a week at this educational company, and then work on Whiskeybarrel 2 days a week so I can spend more time with the family and raising my son, and also work on my games. And so last year I went down and I do Whiskeybarrel Studios full-time 2 days a week, so full-time, part-time. And in those days I've been able to slam out the Swords and Sandals Redux series. Last year I powered through them. This year it's been a bit slower because raising a little boy is no joke. It's the best thing you can do, but also one of the most time-consuming things you can do. And there's lots of interruptions. I'm able to do a lot of work when my wife and son are out and about because they're very social. When they're here, there are interruptions and stuff. And any game developer who has a child or children of their own will know this. So, where was I? So, Pirates is being developed this year, but it's being developed slowly. Yeah, and I've been at this educational company for 3 years or so, and part-time probably the last 7 or 8 months. Now, it's an honest job. It's an honorable job. It's a job that pays the bills, and it's a great bunch of people to work with, but it's not something that I ever dreamed that I would be doing. The other day I was in on the Monday, and I spent the entire day animating and timing animations of a skunk or a badger or something clapping happy birthday like this all day, 8 hours of this for a phonics style activity. I never thought that's what I would be doing at this age, and to be honest, it's not something I want to do forever, and so I'm planning more and more to move towards Whiskeybarrel full-time, and with each successive game that comes out I'm able to realize that. So the first game that we released under the Whiskeybarrel label with e-games was Swords and Sandals 2, and that has made a great deal of money. I only got a percentage of that. When I say a great deal, I'm not wealthy, I'm not rich, I'm comfortable, comfortable enough to be able to work on Whiskeybarrel Studios 2 days a week, and I'm very fortunate for that. First, Swords and Sandals 2 has made us a bunch of money and allowed us to make the other Swords and Sandals. 5 has done pretty well, and Medieval has done okay, not as well as the other two. But each one brings in a little bit more money, and with Mini Fighters being launched a few days ago, that'll bring another small amount of money. And so the more of these I do, the more I'm able to transition into doing this full-time. Because if I can work for myself full-time, I will really be able to increase the output and the quality of the games that I make. I've got big plans for Swords and Sandals, huge plans, and not just Swords and Sandals, other games. Oh yeah, I'm drinking instant coffee as always. I'm making these awful instant coffee mochas. So like a mochaccino, so it's got this kind of Cadbury's drinking chocolate in it. It's quite terrible. Got a biscuit as well. This is a very, very enthralling video, no doubt. These are good biscuits. Now, where was I? Where was I indeed? Today I'm drawing pirates, 4 Swords and Sandals pirates. I've done about 28 of the 40 pirates and soldiers for the game. And once that's done, that's a huge milestone in the development of the game. And I really feel like you can never say for sure, but I'm confident that I can get the game out by November. I know I've said other dates in the past, and it has kept slipping, but I didn't realize how hard it would be to have a job 3 days a week, work on Whiskeybarrel Studios 2 days a week, and raise a baby. Because the weekends are pretty much full. What I wanted to talk to you today about is, finally after all this time, is future projects. So after Pirates is finished, I'm going to be starting on another project with eGames called Spartacus Rebellion. Now I can't wait to get started on this, because this tells the story of the gladiator Spartacus and his breaking free of the gladiator Ludus, and he's basically took on the Roman Empire, and with a bunch of gladiators and slaves ran wild across Rome and Italy, and eventually, and caused a great deal of trouble for the Roman armies before eventually succumbing to his wounds in a great battle and being crucified eventually. I think he was crucified anyway, but we're doing a game based around that, and it's a little army game, kind of Warcraft, kind of tower defense. We're hoping to secure the services of a great pixel artist in the next week or two who has a wonderful visual style, and not something we've seen before in my games, a really nice pixel art style. And I'm really hoping to be able to team up with my good buddy John Stayskull, the game developer, who also works with me at this educational company. And he's been working very hard for the last number of years, probably 3 or maybe even more years, on a Viking platformer called Blood and Mead. And this is a hilarious adventure game where you control a drunken Viking on the quest for the perfect pint of mead. He's belligerent, he's angry, he pisses everywhere, he is rude to the locals, he sets fire to buildings, and he loves his beer and wine and mead. He's building this game in Unity, and it's really coming along nicely. I've played some early versions of it, and I love it. So you can go and check him out at bloodandmead.com. But the reason I bring John up is because he and I are hoping to team up and work together on Spartacus as designer and programmer, and I'll also do some programming on the game as well. And that will be the first game that I've actually teamed up with someone else on, other than hiring artists and so on. So I'm really excited about that, and that will really allow me to make multiple games at once. So we're going to do some more announcements for that in the future once it's official. It's all just talk at the moment, but I'm really hoping it can come together. In addition to that, over the last year or so, I've been writing a graphic adventure novel. Actually, it's not even a graphic adventure. There are some pictures in it, but it's more a choose your own adventure style book set in the world of Swords and Sandals, which is of course Brandor on the planet Tritonia. And this book is called, at the moment it's called Tower of the Sorcerer, or Tower of Bargle, and it's about a hero who must journey to the tower of the legendary sorcerer Bargle and track down the Helm of Gods. I've done about maybe 20,000 words in this, and maybe 200 or 300 entries. I'm about 75% complete. I've been writing that on the train, just on my phone. Just getting the phone and typing away each entry as I go, and just in a Google document. It's amazing how much you can get done when you're just, my commute to work is quite long. It takes me, on a good day, an hour. On a bad day, an hour and a half, because I live way out in suburbia, and the job's in the inner city area, inner west of Sydney, Australia, where I am today. And so I've had a lot of time to put this novel together, and not every day, but most days I'll write it, and that will be ready to be turned into a game in Unity later in the year, and that'll be just a very cheap, maybe even free with a one-off in-app purchase or something, game for those who love Swords and Sandals and want to find out more about the world. And for those who like fighting fantasies and choose your own adventure books, you might like that. Depending on how Pirates goes and how Spartacus goes and how Swords and Sandals adventure game books go, that's the first one. If that does well, I might do more. Depending on how those go and how the other games continue to sell, the transition to full-time might be sooner or later, but I definitely plan on doing this Whiskeybarrel stuff seriously full-time in the next year or two. And that's a believable and achievable dream. Now's the time. I'm not getting any younger. I've got the passion to be a great game developer. I have the energy most of the time, but right now I don't have the hours to be able to really be able to build the games I want in the time frames I want. And you guys want the games faster, and I want to make them faster, so I hope this can happen. I'm thinking, I don't know, maybe I'll set up a Patreon or something. I've been a bit adverse to that, because I don't want to, basically ask for your money without giving you something in return, but it might be a way to get the games out quicker or something. So if that's something that you might be interested in, let me know in the comments. Finally, I wanted to talk to you about the biggest project I want to start working on from the end of this year and start of next year is, of course, the next big Swords and Sandals. Because, damn it, we're due for a good Swords and Sandals arena game, aren't we? Swords and Sandals VI. That's what I want to work on. The plan for that one, I've been formulating in my head over the last year or two by building the Redux series. Those games had a few limitations, many limitations, because I was working from old code and using an old game framework called Adobe Air and Starling, which is fine, but the time has come to move on to Unity, which you see a lot of great games developed in, and I want to make the best and biggest and most exciting Swords and Sandals game that I've ever made and that you've ever played. Still going to be 2D, that's the plan. I think, you never know, we might experiment with a 3D art style depending on how it can work, but the idea is that this game will be, first of all, multiplayer. It will be arena focused. There won't be dungeon crawls and pirates and mini tavern games and all that sort of stuff like that. Although there'll probably be like a little tavern game or two for fun, but it won't be a bunch of mini games. This will be pure arena combat with arena champions and duels and tournaments the way you like them, and armor upgrades and skill trees and everything. The thing I want to do different about this is I want to change up how the combat works. So imagine, if you will, a mixture between real-time and turn-based. And don't get scared when I say real-time. I'm not talking about a Street Fighter or a kind of timing-based action game. I'm more thinking of, imagine XCOM. If you've played the XCOM strategy franchise, you'll notice that the games, you have a squad and you have your individual characters have a certain amount of movement points. So you can, with the one character, you might run, hide behind a block, and then fire a weapon, and that's his turn. Then the enemy gets a turn, and they might, defensive position, roll somewhere, and then throw a grenade. In Swords and Sandals VI, what I'd like to have is a gladiator that has a certain amount of, we'll call them, stamina or essence or whatever you want to call it, but it essentially has a certain amount of energy that he can use or she can use to perform their movements. So a gladiator might start off crouched down, and he might roll backwards, leap over a spiked pit, and then raise his shield. And each one of those might take 5 energy for the roll, 10 energy for the jump, and 20 energy for the block. And then he's done. The other gladiator might do a powerful somersault leap and then land with a bam with his axe. That might be one move, and that takes all his energy. So what you then get is a much more tactical, interesting combat than just attack high, attack low, attack medium, attack. Because I've kind of reached the limits of what I can do with that. It's been done many times by myself and others, and I'd love to try this new combat style. It may work, it may not work, but I'm definitely interested in seeing how that goes. The other thing I want to do with Swords and Sandals 6 is to add verticality to the game. So what I mean by that is pillars to climb, spike pits to jump over, ropes to swing from, platforms and wooden ladders and rocky mountains to climb up and that kind of thing. Each arena will be like an obstacle course a little bit that you can fight your enemies on. I got the idea from this from an excellent little PlayStation game called Nidhogg, Nidhogg, which is a little dueling game where players, fight with fencing swords and so on, and they have chandeliers and that kind of stuff, and you jump up and down. And I thought that would be really cool for Swords and Sandals if I could mix that in. So I've already started in my head planning this game. None of it has been designed on paper or brought into code or anything like that yet. I've got to finish off Pirates and this other stuff first, but I can't wait to get started with that. That'll be the first game where I don't do any art either. We're going to hire full-on professional artists for that one and still try and keep the classic cartoony Swords and Sandals flavor, but really make this feel like a game that you want to play, a premium style game. I'd love to get this game out on PlayStation 4 and maybe Xbox One and maybe Switch. That would be awesome. I've got a Nintendo Switch and I love it, and if I could get this game on a Switch, that would be a dream come true. We'll start it off on Steam first and go from there. So that are my plans. Those are my plans for the next couple of years. I'm really excited. I'm loving how well Whiskeybarrel Studios is coming along, but I'm being conservative in how I approach it because it brings in money, but not quite enough money to go full time yet, and support a family and have a mortgage. So I want to do it slowly, but eventually we will get there. We will have maybe I'll be even able to hire more developers and hire a full-time artist and move to an office in the city and really make a go of it. But my plan in the immediate future is get this thing running full-time and get more games out to you, and bigger, better, brighter games, more Swords and Sandals, more often. Anyway, I'm loving the journey. The best thing that ever happened to me, or one of the best thing that ever happened to me, was having my baby boy and of course marrying my beautiful wife. But the best thing that ever happened to me professionally was basically the whole with my old company. At the time, it was a very unpleasant experience, but I'm so glad it happened because it forced me to move on and really stand on my own 2 feet. And I'm well on my way to doing it and not wasting my time with garbage quizzes and interactive rubbish and client projects and really doing the stuff that I'm into and that I'm passionate about. I wish for you all the success that I've had so far and continued success for both of us. Thank you so much for the fans of the series who have contacted me on Discord and YouTube and Twitter and Facebook and email and all the different platforms, who continue to support me and ask about the franchise and Swords and Sandals and everything, and just basically interact. And it's so nice to be able to hear from fans of the series who I basically didn't have any contact with back in the old days because I was just a programmer. I didn't really have control of the franchise, and I'm so glad that I have it now. And finally we can manage Swords and Sandals the right way and not squander the wonderful opportunity we have to make this what I believe the best gladiator franchise in the world. That's it for now. This has been a long chat. Thanks for staying with me. go grab yourself a coffee or a tea or a beer or a mead. Go check out John Stachel's Blood and Mead game videos. That's going to be coming out in the next year or two. And there will be much more and some more announcements for you in the next few days, hopefully. All right. Cheers, everybody, and bye for now.